just like, you're just hit with like all these million thoughts, but like really the first like really thought that came to my head is like, how am I gonna tell my mom this? My name is Matt Burnsworth. I'm 36 years old. 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with an extremely rare cancer called pseudomyxoma peritonei, or PMP for short.
Before Matt was diagnosed with cancer, you got to understand that he was backpacking, white watering, lifting weights, mountain climbing, ice climbing, going to the gym every day. He was a picture of health.
It's not what I've done for Matt, it's not what I will do for Matt, it's what I would do, and I would do anything for him, and he knows that, and I know that about him as well. I mean, we always say, kind of joke around that we're brothers, or as close to the brothers as someone could be, and his mom even kind of calls me her son too, or her second son, and so I think, I'm there for Matt. I've always been there for Matt however he needed me, and if he called me tomorrow and said, I need you to move to Vegas, I would pack up my stuff here and move back there. So it's not even a question really. I consider it kind of a blessing, or that I could be there for him.
I didn't know him beforehand. He was a nice guy when I talked, but he was in pain with tubes. And now I see this guy that is so positive, so upbeat. All he talks about is how good things are and how optimistic he is that he's going to get this tube out eventually, that he's going to recover, even after he's been told numerous times in the beginning that he had a slim chance of surviving this.
The most amazing thing having Matt come train at Phillippi Sports Institute was just his drive to keep moving forward. And that was the most incredible thing when you come across a person like Matt, is just his desire to never give up. And that translates over to your life and makes you a better person. After witnessing Matt come into our lives in the last 5 years, my life will never be the same.
So kind of the way I found out I had cancer is really kind of non-conventional. It wasn't through a CT scan or going to a doctor necessarily. It was I was at the gym squatting one day, and we were trying to max out or see how much we could do. And I had almost close to 600 pounds on the bar. And I ended up lifting the weight, but the next day I had a bump on my groin, which everyone thought was an inguinal hernia. I did the surgery, went home for the recovery, which is about 6 days. Never heard anything back from the doctors. Thought everything was fine, Then I went back in for the doctor's appointment, and he kind of sat down, and everything got really quiet, and was like, hey, we didn't do the surgery on you. And I was like, well, sure felt like you did. He's like, no, we cut you open, but once we looked inside, there were all these tumors in there, and he's like, I just sewed you back up, and I reached out to an oncologist, but yeah, it ended up not being a hernia at all.
Matt called me at night after work meetings, and he was upset on the phone, really upset, and he was crying, which is really not typical for Matt. And so he said, Google this, and what it was they accidentally sent him the pathology report, and I'm trying to spell out pseudomyxoma peritonei while I'm upset, and he's upset, and he's trying to spell it to me over the phone, and so pull up this rarest form of cancer, 1,000 cases in the world, and he's like, they accidentally sent me the pathology report instead of sending it to the doctor, and this is what it says I might have, and I was trying to calm him down. And I was like, I'm sure it's a mistake, and it just says you might have that, or it looks like that. And it's so rare that they had never diagnosed it from that doctor. or from that pathology lab or the laboratory. And so he said on there that they had to go to the Mayo Clinic to confirm or deny if that's really what he had. And so that was a Thursday, and I was living in San Diego, and so I told him that I'm going to fly home on Friday and then talk to my landlord and just pack up my car and drive up to Vegas and move into the house there with him and go to the Mayo Clinic, and we'll figure it out together.
Basically, I finally get into the doctor's room after, you know, the greatest anticipation that I've ever felt for anything in my entire life. You know, my heart was racing. I was there, I was gonna find out, you know, what this is, and hopefully find out, you know, if I did have this, you know, what kind of chances would be for me to live, you know? And so the doctor walks in, and you know, right away she didn't even really introduce herself. I think she kind of got the idea that I'd had myself read and gone over, you know, the pages, because she could see it in my face, and she just put her hands on my shoulders, you know. I knew, like, right there, you know, that all this horrible things, you know, that I read about was what was happening to me. You know, I asked her, I go, well, what are my chances? You know, how much chance do I have? And she just basically, she didn't even give me an answer. She just looked down and was like, you know what, son, they're getting better at this. And, you know, that was really scary.
It was just like, you know, watching a loved one kind of maybe get a death sentence. You know, a perfectly healthy person a week ago is now hearing from a doctor that he has one of the rarest forms of cancer. And I was just stunned. I didn't really feel anything. I just was in shock. It felt like the entire time I don't know if I was in denial, or I just didn't think that it was going to really be true. And I thought there was some kind of mistake.
I was actually on my dinner hour at work, and when he first told me, it was shock, and it was like having your worst terrifying nightmare live. I collapsed. Two friends helped me into an office, shaking all over, till I could get myself together, and it was just disbelief.
You know, the doctors here in Las Vegas weren't really equipped to handle this type of thing. In fact, I think I was maybe the second or third case in the history of Nevada that's ever had this cancer. So, you know, they did a really good job and recommended me to the Mayo Clinic, which is, I mean, world famous. You know, pretty much most people have heard of the Mayo Clinic. So I was pretty excited about that. You know, I mean, I wasn't excited that I had cancer, but I was excited that they, you know, referred me to some place where if I was going to get some answers, it was probably going to be there. So we go down to the Mayo Clinic. We go in there. They sent the first doctor in, and I mean, this is pretty crazy, but the guy walks in the door and he goes, "There's a mistake here." And you know, I look at my mom, I look at my best friend Tom, and I'm like, holy hell, I'm like, maybe this is all just a mistake. And believe it or not, he goes, well, I looked at this and I'm the wrong doctor for this. You know, he's like, he didn't even know about it. So the mistake ended up being that they gave us the wrong doctor, which I felt like punching the guy after that. But we actually had to wait around, and they had the president, the head of all oncologists for the Mayo Clinic, come down which, that made me realize this is really serious. And he gave me a diagnosis. When we were there, he told me about the MOAS surgery, the 14-hour surgery, mother of all surgeries. I asked him straight away, I was like, how many of these surgeries have you done here? Because I'd gone online and I'd read, a little bit, and they said you wanted somebody very experienced, that's done at least 100 surgeries. And they said 5. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound very good, you know what I mean? Like a 14-hour surgery, and the guys only did it 5 times. I mean, that's like, trying to build a brand new car from scratch for the first time. I just felt like, I asked him, I was like, hey man, if this was you, who would you in this whole world want to do this surgery? And he said, well, there's a guy, he actually invented it. His name's Dr. Sugarbaker. He's in Washington, D.C. I'll tell you right now, he goes, everybody who's diagnosed with what you're diagnosed with is probably trying to get this guy to do their surgery, and say there's 1,000 people in the whole world. He can only probably do 200 of them, if less than that maybe. But he goes, don't fear, he goes, I will give you my personal recommendation, which should look good to Dr. Sugarbaker, and I actually have his direct dial. So he gave me the phone, I called it up, and luckily I got Dr. Sugarbaker's wife on the phone, who was really a breath of fresh air. After talking to her, I felt a lot more comfortable about my situation. I felt like if anybody in the world could do this, it was going to be Dr. Sugarbaker. And, I had to fill out an extensive, he's not just going to do surgeries on some guy who's an alcoholic, smoking, 10 packs of cigarettes every month or every week. He wants to, he wants to use his talent on somebody who's gonna, fight and survive. And luckily he thought that was me, and they accepted me.
The thing that was different about Matt is that he was so optimistic. He was always optimistic, and I think his mother and his friend Steve and all the other people who came with him, they were part of that optimism, but he always was very optimistic and extremely compliant, and it was a pleasure to take care of him. Wasn't easy, but it certainly was a pleasure to take care of him.
Found out to beat this thing, the next step was the mother of all surgeries, which they call MOAS.
The procedure that Matt had is a 2-part process. First of all, there's a surgical procedure that removes all visible evidence of the disease that's in the abdomen and pelvis. And then following that, there's a chemotherapy washing of those surfaces in order to try and prevent the disease from coming back. The cancer cells re-implanting in the surgical site. So the first part of this involves what we call peritoneectomies, and I basically invented that and published it way back in about 1995. The chemotherapy aspects of it have evolved over 20 years, and they are actually still evolving. So the French are making contributions, and we're continuing our work in the laboratory to try and come up with the perfect chemotherapy that has minimal adverse effects and yet will preserve this disease-free state in the abdomen and pelvis that the surgery has created.
So after the first surgery, it was, it was brutal. I mean, I had 14 tubes sticking out of my body, 2 of them, the size of your garden hose, just draining chemotherapy out of me. Ended up being in the hospital for about 22 days. They took out part of my intestine, so I ended up needing a ileostomy bag. So it was this bag that my intestine went on my body that was attached to myself. It was a really rough stay. Probably one of the most difficult things that I went through, though, that already made a rough stay harder, was I had a staph infection. So I had a TPN, which is an IV nutritional support, that it got infected, and I actually got a staph infection. And there were 3 days where, I literally felt like my body was on fire. Like somebody took a can of kerosene, just dumped it all over my body, and just lit me on fire. And I remember, just blacking out. The pain was so bad. Like, I know what it feels like to be burned alive now. Like, I was just blacking out, and I would wake up and I would ask my mom, I wouldn't even know who I was, what my name was. And my mom and my friend Steve would, tell me, hey, your name's Matt. You had this massive surgery and you're in the hospital right now. And, luckily it was 3 days, but it felt like a lifetime. The whole thing ended up being about 22, 23 days. And then finally, thank God, I got out of there.
From the time Matt was little, when he was a young boy, he was always an empathetic child, compassionate. He was always easygoing. He always had a zest for life, such loyalty to family and friends. He's always been there. When he was in the hospital, he had friends, family from all stages of his life come to the hospital, send him gifts, and could just go on and on, make meals, but they would rent rooms at the motels and come and visit him. From friends when he was in grade school, junior high, high school, college, all his jobs that he worked at, neighbors. But Matt has been there for them too, and that's why I think it's because of the way he is.
Matt and I have been friends for 23 years, and so we share a lot of the same friends. And he has a very large family and a huge network of friends. And so as his mom and his family, his direct family, are going through all this at the same time. And so, one thing that I was able to help them do is to keep communication going to the friends and family while he was in surgery, or even post-surgery and things like that, to keep everyone updated on how Matt was doing, so that his mom or other people in the family didn't have to field literally hundreds of calls or emails that we would get. And a lot of times, depending on Matt's situation in surgery or how things were going, we didn't, we kind of wanted to control a little bit of the communication that was going outwards, not make people too upset about some of the updates that we heard from doctors, because at times, they would give us a couple different scenarios, and there were a couple that were pretty bad. But I created a blog for Matt. And I kept that updated through his first surgery, which was about 13 or 14 hours, and just every couple hours that I would get updates, that I would keep it posted on the blog. And so people at all times, we're big into religion and big into Christianity, and so it was important for us, for people to know how Matt was doing, what to pray for, and to see kind of in lifetime prayers being answered, and what the needs were at the time.
We would follow Matt. He would send us updates via email and checking in with them. We also share a very deep faith together, and I know he knew that I was praying for him, as well as the whole Phillippi sports family. So he always knew he could count on us to be lifting him up in prayer and supporting him in that way.
So when you go through something like that major, you have to have an advocate, or just somebody there, to support you and just be there. You're hooked up to all these tubes, you're, on all these pain medications and stuff. you can't even like think for yourself hardly, you know? For me, my advocate, I mean, there was gonna be nobody else other than my mom.
I mean, his mom stayed with him maybe 80, 90 different nights, and then not in the hospital bed, which is uncomfortable in its own right, but she actually had just a little chair that they'd set up for her, or a blanket.
Sneaking into, you know, the doctor's shower room every once in a while to maybe clean up or washing off in a sink, but yeah, she was there the whole time for me.
I can't tell you one time that she's ever complained about it. She's focused on him getting better. When I couldn't be there, she would call me just with little updates and things that she would be inspired by. You know, he was able to walk 3 laps around the nurse's station today and things like that. I think Matt's tremendous hope and his positive attitude is just a direct correlation to his mom and how she is. She's just a special person. She really is. You can tell that Matt has her genes.
You know, when you go in, they have you fill out all this paperwork and information on yourself. And one of the questions on there is, you know, are you affiliated with a certain religion? And if so, would you like someone from that religion to come by and, you know, pray for you or, you know, support you or, you know, whatever. You know, I grew up Catholic. You know, I actually, you know, did attend church, you know, on a fairly regular basis. But, you know, I saw that and was like, I need all the help I can get, you know, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And so I checked off yes, you know, and then, you know, I think probably on the 3rd or 4th day I was in there, they'd sent a couple like priests in before, but then this little bright-eyed Korean nun with a ton of energy came walking through the door, and that was Sister Moon.
Matthew said, "Come on in," and I was able to, you know, sit down. He was able to really want to say something to me. So I sat down next to him, and he shared his story. I mean, it's an amazing story that I never heard.
It seemed like she had this sixth sense or something. When I was at my lowest, or in the most pain, or just feeling awful, I mean, she would just come walking in the door. You know, it was crazy. It was like she knew, you know, she would just come, she would be there.
But he was open to me, so he said, I had something special experience. I don't know how it happened, so tell me about it. And he did tell me that.
You know, there was a one time when I was waiting for my intestines to wake back up, and you know, while you're doing that, you basically can't take pain medication because pain medication puts your intestines to sleep. So, you know, you're doing it alone without any help, and you know, you have to eat, so you're trying to eat stuff, and every time you eat, I mean, it would feel like, you know, I just swallowed, you know, a handful of broken glass or razor blades. I mean, it felt like someone was inside my stomach just tearing and ripping and cutting it all apart. And, you know, I had been through other blackout pain experiences, and this was another one. But, I mean, it was just killing. I mean, and all I could do was walk it off, and they would just say, walk it off, and I would walk till all of a sudden the pain was so great I would just fall on the floor. And you know, one of the nurses saw me doing this one time. I'll never forget this, the nurse who did this, and he, like, you know, he just took pity on me, and he went and got a wheelchair. You know, I'd been in the hospital for 2 weeks, I hadn't been outside, and he was just like, you know, I was ready to give up, and he could see that, and he was like, hey man, why don't you just go outside, you know, get some fresh air. So he put me in the wheelchair and, you know, showed my mom where to go, and there's this little courtyard out in the middle of Washington Hospital Center. And I get out there, you know.
And he was severe pain before night. I mean, he told his mother that, "Let me go, Mom, it's unbearable. I couldn't do that anymore." And he's about to, die, ready to go.
And I just look up at the sky, and I'm like, I wanted to die. I wanted to die. There's times when you're a kid and stuff like that, or things, and you tell your parents you want to like commit suicide, or like I'm gonna kill myself. Like, I wanted to die. Like, if someone had put a gun there, I would have gladly grabbed a hold of it and just pulled the trigger, and because I could not take the pain anymore. It was just too much. I just couldn't stand it. And I'll never forget. In my head, I just started like begging God, like begging Him, like, please, like, God, like, make this pain, like, make it go away, or take me, like, just freaking take me right now, like, please make it go away, or take it, or take me home, or take me wherever. And I just kept repeating that over and over in my head. And all of a sudden, it was crazy. It was like, I don't know, man, like this feeling came down, and it started in my toes, and it just rose up like through my body, and it like released like out my head. And as this feeling came over me, it was just it was like a sense of euphoria that I've never felt or can't even describe. It just took all the pain completely. It was gone. Now, I had been feeling like this for, 7 days, and it was gone. It was gone. Like,
He couldn't believe it. I said, "Matthew, you experienced God." That's what I told him. God experienced you, and you experienced God.
And I asked Dr. Sugarbaker, I went up, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I'm walking around. I went from feeling like the worst in a wheelchair to like running around like nothing never happened to me, like totally normal. And I'm like, get Dr. Sugarbaker. So they go get him, and I ask him, I'm like, I'm pain-free. I go, how did this happen? Has this ever happened before? And he said, he was like, honestly, I've never seen anything like this, He said basically that, normally it gets gradually better over time, but he's never witnessed it just completely disappear like that. And, I asked him, and he's a doctor, he's like Mr. Science. And I was, how do you think this happened? And even he looked at me and he said, sometimes, Matt, there's a higher power involved. And, I really, for a long time I didn't even share that story with anybody, like my mom and a few friends, because I didn't want people to think I was crazy or nuts, but I really honestly felt like I experienced God. So a year goes by, and I'm feeling pretty good. I go in for my 1-year CT scan. I get a CT scan every 6 months to see if the cancer has come back. So I go in for my 1-year scan, and this time comes back, my stomach's clear.
Kind of turned the corner and was cancer-free. And then we actually celebrated him being cancer-free for a year. We had a big party at the beach, and a bunch of our friends came down for it. And then
everything's great. Now there's something on my lung. There was about a 2 centimeter tumor outside my lung. So, I wasn't sure what it was because, the PMPs, from what I always understood, was something that happened in your stomach or your thoracic area. And, but, we obviously sent these results off to Dr. Sugarbaker, and, he apparently, before me, there had been 26 other cases where there's been a microscopic hole from, in your stomach area into your lung, and sometimes the little cancer cells go up in there and they get in your lung area. And even though they did the surgery on my stomach and had cleared everything out, they didn't do anything to my lung because it never ever goes up there, except lucky me. It was back. It was just, it was defeating.
Kind of repeat of history. Again, I just moved out of my place in San Diego and drove back up, packed up my car, drove back to Las Vegas, and started all over again.
So my second surgery is when I met Dick, and he's just an awesome guy.
Matt and I both had these tremendous surgeries, which were 9-10 hours long, 2 weeks in the hospital after each surgery. Matt's was a lot more severe than mine, but
when you're going through the surgery, they tell you to walk. And they have, the kind of the pathway around the hospital floor that it's kind of like the track where everybody's walking on and, trying to get the hell out of there.
And I'd seen Matt walking by my room. I was still in the bed after 5 days, couldn't move.
And in Washington, D.C., they had this real nice, little area at the end of the hall where they had like a fish tank, and actually some sunlight came in the window, and me and the other patients were kind of like, almost like reptiles out there, laying in the sun, because you're in that dark, decrepit hospital room all day, 24 hours a day. But, that's where I saw Dick.
After, a couple of passing by each other's room, we give each other a wave, hey, and then there was one day that we both happened to be, we kind of ambled into the waiting room. It was like a little lounge there, and he was there with his mom, Lee, and I was there with my fiance, Dana, and both my sons, and Matt was sitting there, and we both had tubes coming out of us everywhere, and out of our nose, through our stomach, through our sides, and we're walking around with IV bags, and it was just, and we were both in a lot of pain, and we both sat down and we kind of just started a conversation. And that's the thing about Matt, was that he was the guy that initiated the conversation. We kind of were comparing notes on what he had and whatnot.
I could kind of see in Dick, it was his first time there, and I had already been through the Sugarbaker surgery once, so I just kind of saw him and was like, I could tell he had a lot of questions and things that he was worried about. I kind of saw, like, I got to talking to him and we just got on right away, And we found out that we had a passion for surfing. He was from California. We talked a little bit about that. I tell him he's like me in 20 years or, whatever. He is older than me. I kind of saw that, here's my opportunity to take all the hell that I went through, but, pass and share that information along, and just, let him know, like, you know, like it's gonna be okay. You're gonna, I mean, even though I was in there for my, you know, kind of second surgery to get sewn back up, you know, I was able to kind of share with him, you know, that, you know, you'll get through this stuff. If you have to have an ostomy bag, it's not so bad. I thought all the same crap, you know, scared to death of how am I gonna, you know, live with this bag attached to me and all that stuff. Yeah, him and I became like a really good support system for each other, not only in there, but still today. We still talk all the time. It's funny, we call each other Sugar Baker brothers, actually. And that's how I feel, man. I feel like he's my brother.
Just talking to him, he's one of those rare individuals. He's just a nice guy. I mean, everybody liked him. Everybody in the hospital liked him. The nurses spoke highly of him. Ilsa Sugar Baker, I hope she doesn't see this, actually wanted to set up her daughter with Matt Burnsworth because he's such a nice guy. He's a handsome fellow too, which is kind of weird for me to say that, but he's a good-looking guy, and he's just a great guy, and he's just got a great outlook on life, positive, encouraging, you know, and to me, he helped me get through this surgery, and to me, I'm lucky to have him as a friend today.
There would be like 6-7 months that go by and you would just get texts or whatever letting us know that he was doing okay. But when he would come back into the facility, sometimes the first time it was almost hard to recognize him. He had lost so much weight.
There was a time in between you know, my second surgery where they just opened me up and reversed the ileostomy. You know, by that time I went from being 225 pounds of all muscle to 135 pounds. I mean, I looked literally like a concentration camp prisoner, skin and bones. But within 6 months, you know, I went back to the Phillippi Sports Institute where, you know, I'd originally, you know, did the squat where I found out, you know, I had the cancer.
But the minute you saw that smile, you knew that Matt was back, and it would just be so exciting to see his determination not to let anything stop him from working out and improving all that he could do.
And I built myself back up to 205 pounds. I mean, I worked my butt off. I ate perfect, I trained hard, you know, I did everything I possibly could.
I think the most amazing thing with Matt coming into the gym and just, you know, he was in pain. I mean, just to see the drive that he had just to be here, it's hard to explain unless you were able to witness it, where he would never stop wanting to bench press what he did before he got sick, and to see his drive to be able to do that. I mean, you may be having a bad day and you walk in and see Matt working out, and you walk out of here with like a deep awe and inspiration and a smile on your face.
And I built myself up, and thank God I did that, because, you know, when the cancer came back on my lung, you know, luckily there's a protective layer over top my lung and my heart. So the cancer was kind of shielded from attaching to the lung or attaching to my heart. But if it had, I mean, Dr. Sugarbaker didn't even give me a percentage again. But basically, you know, it was so great that during my lung surgery that Dr. Sugarbaker did on me, from what he's told me, he gave me the largest dose of chemotherapy at one time that they had, or maybe anyone has ever given to a human being. He said it's what they would have used on a horse, like literally if a horse had cancer. And the fact that I had built myself up made me able to survive that. And the reason why he put me at risk of possibly dying from that chemotherapy dosage was because they were so afraid that if the cancer would come back on my lung, that, you know, it's better to risk killing me with the chemo than what the cancer might do or would kill me if it came back on my lung again.
Matthew's friends have been phenomenal through this. Friends, family, neighbors. His friends would fly to the hospital. At one time we had to take a section of the hospital. They brought in couches and chairs. We had so many people there. They were having a hard time accommodating everyone. But they've been a tremendous help with moral support, physically helping. We've had friends and family help with meals, cars, helped us with the dogs, because we need dog sitters. I could go on and on.
He's very close with Coda, his dog, and so when he'd be in the hospital, if I couldn't be at the hospital with him because I had to be working or I was watching the house in Las Vegas and watching his dog, I would send him pictures every single day of Coda. I mean, just stupid pictures, or sleeping, or tell him a little story about what she did that day, and just really try to think of anything I could do to make sure that, one, he knew she was being well taken care of, just like he would take care of her, and then two, that he felt kind of connected to her and get his mind a little bit off of where he was.
I mean, during this whole thing, you know, it's not bad enough that I got this rare cancer and I'm doing this 14-hour surgeries. I mean, there's complications when you have cancer that, you know, occur after the surgery. And if the cancer didn't kill me or doesn't kill you, I mean, the complications can. And there was a time where I almost died twice. It was due to, I had this, you know, I had an ileostomy bag, and the nutrition that was supposed to go through my intestines just wasn't getting absorbed, so I wasn't absorbing my electrolytes, you know. You know, people know that from things like sports drinks, you know, you gotta give your electrolytes. But they basically carry the electrical spark of life. That's why they're called electrolytes. And one day I woke up, went downstairs, and I mean, I just blacked out. I completely blacked out, and I face first on the tile floor. You know, I just landed face first. You know, fell flat on my face, literally, on the floor. And it was like someone took a baseball bat, hit me in the face with it. And I laid there unconscious, knocked out. And, you know, this is one of the things why, you know, people say, like, man, you're like obsessed with your dog. But she saved my life. She laid there, you know, while I was on that floor, knocked out, and she licked my face, cried the whole time until I woke up. And you know, I did wake up, and this happened twice, and I grabbed the phone, you know, and I luckily had a friend on speed dial who came and got me and rushed me to the emergency room. And when I got there, you know, they said, Matt, is your heart palpitating? And I said, no, but why are you saying that? They're like, you know, you have no zinc in your body, you have no potassium, you have no electrolytes. They're like, your heart should be stopped, you should be dead, you know. And had I laid there on that floor any longer, you know, I wouldn't be here right now, you know. Thank God for my dog. But that, you know, that's why I love her. She's like like a kid to me, but she holds an extra special place in my heart.
Even in Matt's darkest times in the hospital, he still reached out to people. There was a young girl, her mother had the same cancer that Matthew had, Michelle. she was in there twice with her mother when Matthew was in there. So Michelle and I became very close. We would go down to Whole Foods together and get organic foods for Matt and for her mom. And the one day Michelle came in, because we had both her mom and Matt thought they were going to be in there for a matter of maybe 10 days, which turned into a month and a half. Michelle came in with hospital scrubs on. And Matthew says, "What are you doing, Michelle, with hospital scrubs?" And she says, "Well, I don't have any. I ran out of clothes and I don't know where to get them washed. I didn't bring enough clothing for this long of a stay." At this point, this was when Matthew had his lung surgery and was on oxygen and still hooked up to a lot of tubes and wires. And Michelle heads back to her room and he says, "Mom," he says, "grab that oxygen tank." He says, this is the first time he got out of bed. The whole time he was there, and we'd already been there for 3 weeks maybe at that point. And I said, "What are," he says, "I'm gonna get out of bed today." I says, "You're gonna get out of bed today?" He says, "Yeah, carry my oxygen tank." And he says, "We're looking help me find an ATM machine." I said, "ATM machine, Matt?" He says, "Yes." He says, he took me to the ATM. We went to the ATM machine, and Matt took out everything that his card would allow. And he says, "I need you to take this money, Mom, and take Michelle shopping. Buy her whatever clothing she needs. And he says, and if she needs more tomorrow, I'll get her more tomorrow." These are the kind of things that Matt would do.
The one amazing, unique thing about Matt that has taught us all here to be better people, better trainers, better nutritionists, is his desire deep inside of himself to go beyond what you think you're ever capable of. And there's no doubt that Matt has taught us, everybody here, to be better people. His desire and his drive is, you know, every now and then you meet a unique person like that, and you know when he passes by that he's really here not only for himself to be a better person, but he makes everybody else around him better.
The experience that I had at Washington Hospital Center and being next to Matt, sharing and going through the same thing that he went through, surgically speaking, made us brothers. And now I see what he wants to do, and he's a better man than I am because he really wants to help people. He wants to, and I can't say that it was the surgery that made him like this because I didn't know him beforehand.
Another time we had a cleaning lady that was going through some hard times. Her husband had lost her job, and her card broke down, and she was in the room, and every day she had noticed I would get down to get coffee. Well, all of a sudden, every morning when I would wake up in my chair, there would be sitting a cup of coffee, creamer, sugar, and extra towels so that I could shower. And she would always be so quiet so that Matt could rest, could sleep, that both of us could sleep, actually. And before we had left, Matthew had wrote a letter to the president of the hospital about Joetta and had explained how instrumental she was in his recovery, with not only just for him, but how much he appreciated her helping his mother because I was helping him. And how, you know, so let me get to the chase here. The next time we came in, which was, was that maybe a year later? We come in to the sugar baker floor, I called it. And the girl behind the desk that was running the floor, I said, "She looks so familiar." But I didn't realize who she was at first because she was totally transformed. It was the same cleaning lady who, at that time, no makeup, just her scrubs, her just very quiet, demure. This woman was now running the floor. She saw us, was so elated, said, "So much has happened since the last time I saw you." She says, "Do you remember when Matt wrote that letter to the president?" She says, well, they had a dinner for me and read the letter at the dinner. Her picture was now on the first floor of the hospital. She was now running the desk, and she was the one telling the nurses, and you know, she was running the sugar baker floor that day. And but I could tell you stories on and on. These are from even just when Matthew was in cancer, not counting all the other, but this is Matt's nature.
So 3 years go by, 3 years from my first surgery, and 2 years from when it came back, the cancer came back on my lung. And I started feeling weird again, you know. I had, you know, I just started feeling like, you know, kind of like before this whole thing started, you know. But in my mind, you know, Dr. Sugarbaker did that extensive surgery, giving me a dose of chemo that, you know, enough to kill a horse. And, you know, I actually did some extra chemotherapy on top of that. I thought, no way, you know, this could be the cancer, you know. But I started feeling, you know, horrible again and weird. You know, I had actually got to a point in my mind where, you know, I was going and doing these follow-up CT scans, and they became so tough. And every cancer patient I've ever talked to has kind of told me the same thing. You know, even if it's 10 years later, every time you go in for one of those things, it's tough. I mean, it's the most anxious, you know, it's scary, you know, you're basically reliving, you know, the worst moment of your life, you know. I mean, it's awesome when you get the news when it's okay and everything, but, you know, and from everything that I'd heard, that if it came back, you know, I was pretty much a goner. So I wasn't even gonna go anymore. You know, I was actually supposed to go in for a CT scan, and I kept putting it off. Because I was like, well, what are they gonna tell me? You know, I'm gonna die? You know, I almost, and I've grappled with that. Do I wanna know or not know, you know? Because I just didn't really think there was anything that, you know, they could do. If it did this time. And, but you know, I started feeling like crap, and I was like, I gotta figure out what this is, and maybe it's something else. And I you know, went in for the CT scan here in Las Vegas, and went in to see the doctor, and in my mind, I totally, I mean, honestly, I mean, it was there, but I thought that was the last thing I was gonna hear. And it was weird, like the doctor at the time, the way he came into the room was like nothing was wrong, you know, and everything was fine. It was almost like he didn't even read the report, which I'm not sure if he did or not, you know, or it was just really strange. And, shakes my hand, sits down, looks at the report, and then it was like almost like he was shocked. And he's like, well, there's a growth on your lung again. I mean, here I am again. Cancer's back, and I mean, I really honestly feel like I'm gonna die. But you know, I still had Dr. Sugarbaker there, and you know, I know if there's somebody on earth that could save my life, or if there was some type of chance, you know, that it would be through him. So, you know, I called him, sent my records to him right away, overnight, and he, you know, normally when you call down there, you talk to Ilsa, who's his wife, but you know, he must have felt like, you know, this is really important. So he actually called me. That was, you know, I think that may be the first time the time that Dr. Sugarbaker actually called me. And he got on the phone with me, and he said, you know what, Matt, there's a surgical option for you. It's not all over yet. Which in my mind, I'm like, oh, thank God, you know. But he's like, it's gonna be tough, you know, it's gonna be rough. And he goes, he said to me, you know, my brother, you know, I pretty much concentrate on the stomach, you know, and but my brother, there's a Dr. David Sugarbaker now. He's one of the world's foremost experts on lung cancers, and actually he specializes in mesothelioma, which there's no cure for mesothelioma. I mean, that's the 10-ton gorilla of cancers right there. And if anybody can do this, it's going to be, you know, my brother.
So I had moved into my new offices in the summer of 2014, and Matt came to see me on the recommendation of other physicians that he try to get the tumor in his chest removed.
An awesome guy. I mean, he's, you know, you can just tell by talking to him, the guy's one of the smartest people in the world. When I walked in there were actually former patients of his. There was a lady who had mesothelioma 8 years ago, and they told her she had 3 months to live, and she's sitting there for her appointment 8 years later, which made me feel pretty good.
The surgery that Matt needed was one to remove the tumor which had grown over his lung, much like the rind would grow over an orange, you know, the rind on an orange concept. And so what we wanted to do surgically was to remove that rind, okay, off the orange, which in this case is his lung, okay? And we needed to remove as well the diaphragm, which is the muscle between the lung and the abdomen or the belly. And so the surgery we did was to successfully remove that rind off the orange, and then to give him a bath of chemotherapy, which is a hot, what we call hyperthermic, thermic meaning temperature, chemotherapy to the area where we removed the tumor that had come back from where it had been in his abdomen.
I don't know, man, like the way he talked about, you know, the cancer, it might have been like Clint Eastwood talking about it. Like, it was like nothing, you know. Here I am, you know, weeks before thinking I had 0 chance to live, then 3 months, then, you know, a small percentage to, he's like, I can knock this out, you know. And
having had experience with tumors like Mr. Burnsworth's, I was confident that it could be removed because I'd done it many times before, and often in the setting of you know, the patient having been told there's nothing anybody can do. So you gain a bit of confidence. That being said, Mr. Burnsworth and his family were aware that there was 25% chance I couldn't take it out. So we try to go into this with our eyes open with patients. You know, I like to be sure that they're informed as to kind of what the chances of success are, what the risks are, and what the potential benefits are. And he was very, very interested in those, in that information, and decided to go forward.
You know, I was going through another surgery again. I knew it was gonna suck. You know, I was gonna wake up on life support with a tube down my throat, and all that's not fun. But you know, there's a chance, and God, you know, thank God that, you know, not only would I beat the cancer, but I could be fairly normal, you know. Not that, you know, somebody who's, you know, afflicted with something or, you know, is not normal, but just like, you know, almost like I was, you know, and that was amazing. That was pretty.
Matt radiates a sense of hope. He is a fulfillment of something I've said over and over, which is when hope's part of the equation, anything is possible. And Matt came in here with an open mind that anything was possible. Okay, and that's a very, very rare commodity. Many patients and or family members come in with a closed mind. This will never work. And it's so important that Matt has a way of transmitting that to others. When he comes to visit, I'm sure that I have other patients who are facing their cancer at an early stage talk with Matt, because he inspires them, and he's living proof.
You know, now we're at 8 months later, so much for 3 months. You know, I'm still here. I did the surgery on my lung. During the surgery, they, you know, when they rip off the cancer, there's a hole. They, I guess, ripped a hole in my lung, so I have a hole in it. And unfortunately, I have to have what's called a chest tube, where, you know, I'm sitting here right now. You can't see it, but I have this tube in my chest. You know, it's thicker than a straw, but, you know, thinner than a garden hose. So, but it's still a pretty good size. And I'll be honest with you, it's pretty painful. It hurts. It's a pain in the butt. You know, I can't just jump in the shower. I got to cut out plastic and cover it all up. But you know, I've been through much worse. And you know, once this thing comes out, all the pain and everything is going to be gone, you know. And Dr. Sugarbaker thinks, you know, that's going to happen in probably about 3 or 4 months. And it's healing and progressing on its own. And you know, to me, it's going to be a miracle when that thing comes out. But you know, I've had so many miracles happen to me by far. I'm not really worried about that, you know, another one happening, because I think it'll definitely occur. But you know, it makes things difficult, but I feel pretty good. You know, I'm back to work, going to the gym. People look at me. I tell them I have cancer, or I had, you know, a chest tube in my lung, and they think I'm crazy. I was at the gym one time, and how one guy was like, "I thought you were the healthiest guy here." But yeah, it'll be out, and I'll be back to 100% in no time. When I was approached about telling my story, you know, I was hesitant about it, or I actually, you know, you know, when I was asked, I was getting ready to send a message back, like, kind of saying, like, you know, I don't think so. You know, it's just really, you know, well, first off, you know, I hate when people take a freaking picture of me. I hate how I look, you know, in pictures, or especially on camera. Like, you know, I listen to myself on a voicemail, and I just can't, like everybody, you can't stand your own voice. But, you know, I did kind of think, you know, especially like after meeting Dick, and, you know, like I've had a lot of people tell me, you know, like, your story has really helped me. You know, I've seen what you've gone through, and it's helped me. And I don't know if this is like another, I mean, I've had so many odd coincidences throughout my, you know, this whole story. But, you know, when I was sitting there deciding literally the day before, you know, whether to say yes or no to do this. I got a message on Facebook. You know, everyone has friends on Facebook, and, you know, not everyone on there is your best friend, you know, or even like someone who you're really close with. And this was a person who, you know, it was a friend of a friend, let's say, that, you know, that I had met and, but not really known. And they, you know, basically said to me that, you know, I want to thank you, Matt. Like, you know, they said they wanted to kill them. They didn't kill themselves because they had read something that I had written on Facebook, and that they could not take their life because they saw how hard I was fighting for mine. And you know, I read that, and it was obviously, I reached out to the person. And I said, thank you for sharing that with me, and, you know, offered to help them in any way I could. And it really touched me even more, because there have been times through this where I felt like that too. You know. But, you know, hearing that and feeling that I might get the opportunity to help, you know, just one other person or someone else who may be going through that, because I don't want anybody to feel like that. Because there's, you know, especially if you, you know, don't have anything with your health. I mean, I don't want people to feel like that. And if there's any way that I can help somebody feeling like that, you know, I would. And hopefully, you know, I don't know, maybe somebody hearing some of my story or something that, you know, one of the other people that are interviewed says that have helped me will help them. You know, and I'm sorry, but you know, that's why I wanted to do this.
Another thing Matt's told me is that he has gained some things from cancer, from going through all this. Like, he always knew he had great friends, family, neighbors, but he never realized just how much he really was loved, he said. And he always knew there was good in the world, but he says, Mom, I didn't realize this much. He says, there was so much good in the world.
When they told me that I had 3 months to live, the first thing I thought about was my family, you know, my friends and my dog, of course. I didn't think about really much else, you know. I thought about, you know, how much time I would miss with them, you know, and what they would feel like if I was no longer around.
I know when we opened up our institute, and we have 5 kids of our own, one of the things that we wanted our motto to be, or our core value to be, is to attract good people to help us to be better people. So it's amazing when we share in Matt's life and his story to look back and to know that the individual that Matt is actually definitely helped me become a better wife, mother, nutritionist. There's no doubt that having seen Matt and going through his journey with him, to see his drive and his determination for us really made us honestly better at what we do. And that's at the bottom line. If I'm not helping somebody, then I shouldn't be in the business I am in. And there's no question that God brought Matt to us to help to fulfill our, you know, mission in life, and that is to do the best we could with owning a training center, teaching people how to be healthier and eat better. And Matt really took that to a whole different level for us. So
I really look back and thought about like all the things that, I'm sorry, but like it's that are just bullshit that really don't matter, that, you know, I got so worked up about and really got depressed about over time. And not just material things, you know, a lot of things that people get depressed about, like, you know, breaking up with girlfriends or boyfriends or, you know, all kind of things. You know, I think anyone can look and really think about, you know, this thing that's bothering me, am I going to look back in 10 years from now and is it really going to matter?
The biggest thing that's happened for me personally is really through Matt's experience, as horrible as it's been for at times, it's really made a profound impact on my life and just the way that I view the world. I went through, my father died unexpectedly 9 years ago, and you know, I grew up very religious in a Christian household and things like that, and when my father passed away, I just, I don't know, I just kind of lost my way with the religion and questioning things like, you know, does God even exist, or does he care? And I didn't understand why it would take someone good like that out of the world when there's so many bad people, and how he died so unexpectedly. I never really got to say goodbye. And he just vanished one day, and that was it. And so then when Matt got sick, I was just kind of floundering for a couple years like that, and going through some really tough times. And then when Matt got sick, and I saw what he went through, and I saw for him going from a giant guy, just like how my dad was, you know, 240 or 250 pound guy to, you know, he lost 100 pounds after his first surgery, and, you know, he's asked me to take pictures of him so people could see what the after picture's gonna look like after he recovers. You know, he's so confident that he would get his life back and get his health back. And watching Matt go through that, you know, I realized that the way that my father died, even though it was unexpected and difficult on me, that it was really a mercy for him, you know, and that I didn't have to watch him waste away or go through an illness like that, because he was a strong guy like Matt physically, but I don't know if mentally he could have done what Matt's done throughout this experience. And so it's changed a lot. I was able to start going back to church and really kind of reinstilled my faith in not only God and the big plan behind things that we don't see through our little lens, and kind of people that are around us as well.
I told him, cancer is big, but Christ is even bigger, big C. So I'm still praying for him. You know, I don't know how long gonna be, but make one day today, the next day today, you know, day by day, I'm praying for him.
I kind of look at the world through a new set of eyes, you know, and I really learned to appreciate like the things like the friends and family, the people that really care about me, because that's what matters. You know, those people, those experiences with them, and those things matter.
Out of nowhere, it tried to break you down. Louder, you yell, but make no sound. When on a string.